Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone. Have you ever missed someone who is still right here? Not because they passed away, not because they left the room, but because the person you believed them to be has quietly disappeared. The mother you thought would always understand you, the husband you were certain would choose you again, the daughter you raised with your whole heart, the one you imagined you'd grow old beside. What do you do with that grief? The grief that has no funeral, no casserole dropped at your door, no permission to fall apart in public. Today, right here, just the two of us, we are going to name that because you deserve to have that grief witnessed, honored, and finally set down with grace. Baba, my name is Brene Brown, and I am a psychologist. But more than that, I am a woman who has sat exactly where you are sitting right now. There is a particular kind of heartbreak that our culture doesn't quite have a word for. Therapists sometimes call it ambiguous loss. Philosophers have touched on it. Poets have circled around it, but most of us have only felt it in the middle of the night. Lying awake, wondering, why am I grieving someone who is still alive? And there is a special layer to this grief, a layer that makes it even more isolating. It is the grief of the version of them you carried inside you, the version you believed in, the version you organized your hope around. That version, that idealized image was real to you, even if it was never entirely real to them. And letting go of that version is one of the most quietly devastating things a human heart can do. Here is what your psychology tells us, and I want you to hear this not as a criticism of you, but as a profound act of compassion toward yourself. We idealize the people we love most because love, at its very core, is an act of imagination. When we fall in love, whether with a partner, a parent, a child, or a dear friend, we don't just love who they are in this moment. We love who we sense they could be, who we hope they will become, who we need them to be. That is not weakness. That is not foolishness. That is the absolute tenderness of a wide, open heart. But here is where it becomes painful. Sweetheart, when reality gently, or not so gently, begins to contradict that image we've been carrying, we don't just feel disappointed, we feel betrayed, confused, ashamed of our own perception. We begin to wonder, was any of it real? Was I naive? Did I miss something obvious that everyone else could see? And then we turn that confusion inward. We begin to grieve not just them, but ourselves, the self who believed, the self who trusted, the self who perhaps loved too generously. The grief of an idealized love is not a sign that you loved wrongly. It is proof that you loved completely. Let's sit inside this for a moment, because I think there are layers to this grief that deserve to be named one at a time. The first layer is this: you are not just grieving a person. You are grieving a future you had already imagined. You had already seen it, hadn't you? The holidays that would go a certain way. The conversations you'd finally have, the day they would look at you and really say, I see you. I'm sorry. Thank you for never giving up on me. You had built a room inside your heart for that future. You had furnished it. You had lit a candle in it. And now You are standing in that empty room, wondering what to do with all that space. That is a real loss. I need you to hear that the loss of a future you believed in is a real and legitimate grief. You don't have to minimize it because at least they're still alive. You don't have to apologize for it because I know other people have it worse. Your grief is not a competition, and it is not a character flaw. It is the cost of having loved with your whole self. There's a second layer, and this one is particularly tender. It is the grief of realizing that the person you idealized may never have truly seen you either. Because when we idealize someone, when we place them in a certain light, we are often simultaneously playing a corresponding role ourselves. The endlessly patient daughter, the always supportive wife, the mother who holds everything together without being asked. And so the question that quietly emerges, the one that can feel almost unbearable, is this: if I had to become a smaller version of myself to fit inside this relationship, did they ever truly know the full version of me at all? That is not a question that needs to break you, but it is a question that, if you have the courage to sit with it, can absolutely liberate you. Because the moment you grieve the version of them you needed them to be, you also open the door to reclaiming the full version of yourself that you set aside to love them. You cannot fully grieve someone else's limitations without first honoring the version of yourself you sacrificed to accommodate them. There's a third layer, and this one I want to hold with extra gentleness because I know it may be the most painful of all. It is the grief that comes not from one moment of disappointment, but from years, sometimes decades, of hoping they would be different, and watching that hope quietly break one small moment at a time. Every holiday that ended in tears, every phone call you hung up feeling more alone than before, every time you thought this time will be different, and it wasn't. This is the grief of chronic disappointment, and it is exhausting in a way that is very hard to explain to someone who hasn't lived it. Because from the outside, you still have that person in your life, but from the inside, you have been doing a kind of invisible mourning for years. And if that is you, if you have been doing that invisible mourning, I want to say something to you directly. You are not bitter. You are not ungrateful. You are not failing at forgiveness. You are simply a woman who has been carrying a very heavy, very invisible weight for a very long time, and you deserve to set it down. Abembe, if this is touching something real in your heart, would you pause right now and think of one sister or friend who might need to hear these words today? Send this to her. She may not have the language for what she is feeling, but you do, and that gift costs you nothing but a moment of love. So if carrying this grief is so painful, why do we hold on to the idealized version? Why don't we simply accept who they truly are, release the illusion, and move forward? My loves, this is where I need to speak to you with the full respect of everything you've lived through. We hold on to the idealized version for several deeply human reasons. And none of them, not one, means something is wrong with you. First, we hold on because letting go of the dream version feels like abandoning them. like saying, I give up on you, like closing a door we promised ourselves we would always keep open. But here is a truth that took me years of work to fully understand, both as a psychologist and as a woman. Releasing an idealized version of someone is not the same as releasing your love for them. You can love someone for exactly who they are, with all their limitations, all their wounds, all their inability to give you what you needed, without requiring that love to cost you your peace. Real love, the kind that has been seasoned by time and truth, doesn't require the other person to be perfect. It only asks that you remain honest. Second reason we hold on, accepting who they truly are can feel like indicting our own past. Because if you accept that this person was never capable of what you believed they were capable of, then what does that say about all those years you waited? All those times you forgave? All those moments you stayed when leaving might have been the healthier choice? It can feel like admitting you were foolish, like your love was wasted. But my darling, here is what I need you to know with your whole heart. Love is never wasted. Not one single prayer you prayed for them. Not one dinner you made. Not one phone call you didn't want to make, but made anyway. Every act of love was a reflection of who you are, not of what they deserved. You love generously because you are a generous person. That does not change regardless of how they received it. Loving someone who couldn't fully receive your love doesn't make the love smaller. It makes you larger. There is a third reason, and this one is perhaps the deepest for many of us, especially those of us raised to be caregivers, peacekeepers, and goofy, and the emotional backbone of our families. Our identity has become woven into the role we play for this person. If you let go of the hope that they will change, if you accept who they truly are, then who are you? What is your role? What do you do with all that space that was occupied by hope? This is where healing requires something brave. It requires you to turn toward yourself, not away from them, but toward yourself, to ask, who am I outside of being the person who loves them? What do I want? What do I need? What does my own healing look like? Now, we have done the hard work of naming, of sitting in the truth, and I want to walk with you now into what healing actually looks like. Not the kind of healing that is a performance. Not the I'm fine now, I've moved on kind. But the real kind, the kind that holds the grief and the grace in the same two hands. The first step in that healing is one that can feel counterintuitive. You allow yourself to fully mourn what was never real. I want you to give yourself full permission today, in this sanctuary of a moment, to grieve the version of this person you carried. Grieve the mother who would have held you without condition. Grieve the partner who would have chosen you every single day. Grieve the child who would have looked at you and said, you were enough. You were always enough. Let yourself mourn that fully, without rushing, because you cannot heal from a loss you haven't acknowledged. And you cannot move forward while you're still pretending the dream was fine. The second step in healing is one of the most sophisticated things a human heart can learn to do. It is learning to see them clearly without the veil of idealization and without the opposite distortion of contempt. because here is what often happens once the idealization breaks. We can tip to the other extreme. We begin to see everything they ever did through the darkest possible lens. We rewrite the story as it was always bad. I was always a fool. But that, too, is a distortion. The truth, the nuanced, grace-filled truth is somewhere in the middle. They were a person, a wounded, limited, complicated person who probably loved you as well as their own wounds would allow, who gave you real moments of real connection, even if those moments couldn't sustain the whole weight of what you needed. Holding both of those truths, the love that was real and the limitation that was also real, is not weakness. It is emotional maturity. It is one of the most hard forms of wisdom a woman can carry. Seeing someone clearly, neither through rose-colored glass, nor rose through the darkness of disappointment, is one of the deepest forms of love available to us. The third piece of healing, and this one I know may feel uncomfortable, is the practice of boundaries. Now, I know that word can feel cold, like a wall, like armor. But I want to offer you a different image for boundaries. Think of them less as a wall that keeps others out, and more as a sanctuary that keeps your peace in. When you have spent years organizing your hope around someone else's potential to change, when you have bent yourself into particular shapes to accommodate their limitations, boundaries are not rejection. They are the first act of self-honoring. A boundary might sound like, I love you, and I cannot continue to participate in conversations that diminish me. I love you, and I will not attend family gatherings that cost me days of recovery. I love you, and I am choosing to let go of the hope that you will give me the apology I've been waiting for, not because it isn't owed, but because my peace cannot depend on your willingness to offer it. Those are not acts of coldness. Those are acts of profound self-respect. And in many cases, they are the most loving thing you can do for the relationship that remains. The fourth step, and perhaps the most liberating of all, is releasing the need for a verdict. So much of the exhaustion that comes with this grief is not just the grief itself. It is the constant internal trial we hold. Were they wrong? Were we wrong? Were we too much? Were we not enough? Did they love us? Will they ever truly see us? My love, you may never get the answer to those questions that you're looking for. And peace, real peace, cannot wait for a verdict that may never come. Peace is something you choose for yourself today. Not because everything has been resolved, but because you deserve to live in the present, not in the courtroom of a case that cannot be won. Now we arrive at the part of this conversation I find most beautiful, because this is where we stop talking about them and we start talking about you. One of the most extraordinary gifts hidden inside this particular grief, and I say this gently, knowing it doesn't always feel like a gift, is that it sends you back to yourself. When the idealized version falls away, when the hope that they will change finally releases its grip on your daily thoughts, a space opens up, and in that space is you. The real you, not the you that organized herself around their needs, not the you that performed patience and grace while privately falling apart. but the full, unaided, deeply worthy you? What did you set aside to love them the way you love them? What hobbies, what friendships, what quiet desires got folded away and put into a drawer? This is your invitation to open that drawer, not with fanfare, not with a dramatic declaration, just with one small, gentle, sovereign act, something that is yours, something that belongs to no one else, something that says quietly but firmly, I am still here. The woman who survives idealized grief doesn't just survive. She comes home to herself, perhaps for the first time, and she is magnificent. Before we close, I want to say one final thing about forgiveness, because I know it's in the room. Forgiveness is not something you do for them. It is something you do for your own nervous system, for your own sleep, for your own mornings, for your own capacity to feel joy without it being shadowed by resentment. And forgiveness does not mean the harm didn't happen. It does not mean they were right. It does not mean you must remain close. It does not mean the apology that was owed has somehow been canceled. Forgiveness simply means I am choosing not to let this live in my body anymore. I am choosing to release the grip this story has had on my daily experience. I am choosing myself. That forgiveness may come slowly. It may arrive not as a single dramatic moment, but as a gradual loosening, like ice in early spring. Be patient with yourself. Healing is not linear. It circles back, it surprises you, and every time it circles back, you will find that you carry it a little more lightly than you did before. Bem Bem, before we close with our affirmation, I want to ask you one more time, is there one woman in your life, a sister, a dear friend, a daughter, who you sense is carrying this invisible grief right now? Please share this with her, not because she needs to be fixed, but because she needs to know she is not alone. That is a gift only you can give her today. Before we part, I want to leave you with something to carry. Close your eyes if you'd like. Take a breath. Place one hand on your heart. You are allowed to grieve what you hoped for. You are allowed to mourn a version of love that never fully materialized. You are allowed to feel the weight of years spent loving someone who could not fully receive it, and you are not diminished by any of it. May you release the obligation to fix what was never yours to fix. May you gently set down the hope that kept you smaller than you were made to be. May you turn with the same tenderness you have so freely given to others and turn it at last toward yourself. You have loved with your whole heart, and your whole heart deserves to be loved by you first. There is a sanctuary waiting for you on the other side of this grief. It has your name on the door, and it has been waiting patiently, quietly, faithfully for you to come home. Take care of yourself, sweetheart. I'll see you next time.